What would you do if the
How could
person
you
who
be
vowed
so
to love you
careless? This is all
was
your
secretly
fault.
building a case to destroy you?
I didn't mean for this
Harper
to
Lane
happen.
thought she knew fear. 3 years of walking on eggshells. 3 years of being told she was crazy. 3 years of watching her husband smile for the cameras while whispering threats in her ear. But she had no idea how far he would go, until the night she collapsed on her kitchen floor, clutching her baby, 7 months pregnant, while his mistress stood in the doorway and said, "Just end it, Travis. She's
We
dragging
stood
you
firm,
down."
and the truth
What
prevailed.
Travis did not know,
This is a victory not just
someone
for
was
us,
watching
but
through a
for
cracked
everyone
phone
who
screen.
believed in this cause.
Someone who would change everything. This story has 3 moments that will make your jaw drop. A betrayal you will never see coming, and an ending that proves one thing. The truth always rises. Stay until the very end. Because what happens in the final 10 minutes, that is the part everyone is talking about. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever been told you were crazy for knowing the truth? Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone. Now, let us begin. The scream that tore through the bald Denver townhouse did not sound human. It was raw, frantic. The kind of scream that made neighbors freeze mid-step on sidewalks and look toward windows with fear crawling up their spines. Harper Lane did not even realize it came from her own throat. One moment she was clutching her 6-month-old son against her chest, trying to shield him from the chaos exploding around her. The next, her husband's arm cut through the air, and the world shattered into blinding white pain. Travis Coleman stood over her like a storm she could never outrun. Broad-shouldered, red-faced, his breath thick with whiskey and something darker, something cruel. His voice was a low growl soaked in rage. "You think you can defy me? You think you can walk away with my kid?" His spit hit her cheek. Her knees buckled. Her vision blurred at the edges, darkness creeping in like fog rolling over mountains. The baby in her arms wailed, terrified, confused. His tiny hands clutched at her shirt as if he understood, somewhere in his infant mind, that his mother was the only thing standing between him and something terrible. Harper tried to get up, but the dizziness pinned her down. 7 months pregnant, exhausted from weeks of sleepless nights and walking on eggshells. She did not have the strength to fight back. She could barely breathe. She could barely think. She pressed her trembling lips to her baby's forehead. "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here." But her whisper trembled so badly that even she was not convinced. In the doorway, Belle Hart leaned her shoulder against the frame, arms crossed, a smirk cutting across her glossy red lips. The woman Travis had been sneaking around with for months. The woman who had whispered poison into his insecure mind, feeding his worst impulses like kindling to a fire. "I told you she'd try something dramatic," Belle said, inspecting her perfectly manicured nails, like Harper was an inconvenience rather than a human being bleeding on the floor. "Honestly, Travis, just to end it, she's dragging you down." The words slithered across the room and wrapped around Harper's throat like a noose. Travis stepped closer. His shadow swallowed her. The baby cried louder, as if sensing the danger that even adults could feel crackling in the air. Harper wrapped her arms tighter around her son, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Please," she begged. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "You're scaring him. Just stop, please." But Travis was not listening. He was not seeing her at all. His face twisted with something darker than anger, something older, a fury she had tried so long to deny existed. "I'm done with you, Harper." His voice dropped to a deadly calm that was somehow worse than the shouting. "You don't get to ruin my life." He reached down and yanked her by the arm. Pain exploded through her shoulder, white hot, searing. The baby nearly slipped from her grasp. Harper gasped and curled forward instinctively, protecting both children. The one in her arms, the one inside her belly. Her knees crashed against the hardwood floor. Her head spun violently. For a second, the entire world tilted sideways. Then everything went dark. Her body slumped sideways, one arm still wrapped protectively around her screaming son. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, broken only by the baby's terrified cries echoing through the townhouse. Belle took a single step forward. She nudged Harper's unconscious leg with the pointed tip of her designer heel and shrugged with casual indifference. "Guess she finally shut up." Travis's breath hitched, not in guilt, in panic. Did I knock her out? Oh, please. Belle scoffed and rolled her eyes. Drama queen just fainted. Pregnant women do that all the time. Help me clean this up before someone hears. But someone had heard. On the cracked phone lying across the room, the screen flickered silently. A video call, unanswered, but connected long enough for the brief image of Harper falling to be captured on the other end. Long enough for the person watching to see just enough of the chaos. Long enough for that person to go very, very still. Evan Lane, Harper's older brother, Colorado State Patrol detective. He stared at his phone screen with a horror that turned his blood to ice water. He had seen his sister fall. He had seen the baby screaming. He had seen Travis standing over her like a predator over prey. Evan was already grabbing his badge, already shoving his keys into his pocket, already sprinting toward the door. He had no idea exactly what he was running toward. But Travis Coleman was about to find out exactly what it meant to hurt Elaine. And when Evan kicked open that door, nothing would ever be the same again. The ambulance lights painted the neighborhood in alternating red and blue. Neighbors gathered on porches, clutching coffee mugs and whispering theories to each other. The quiet Denver street had never seen anything like this. Inside the townhouse, paramedics worked quickly. Harper lay on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face, her eyes fluttering but not fully opening. Her baby had been taken by a female officer who rocked him gently, trying to calm his terrified screams. Travis stood in the corner of the living room, arms crossed, his expression a masterpiece of concerned husband. He had changed his shirt, combed his hair, wiped the rage from his face, and replaced it with worry lines that almost looked genuine. She's been struggling, he told the responding officers, shaking his head with practiced sadness. I've been trying to get her help for months. The pregnancy hormones, the postpartum from our first child. It's been really hard on her. Officer Martinez, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that had seen too many domestic calls to count, studied Travis carefully. Something in her gut told her the story was not adding up, but the evidence at the scene was muddled. Harper was incoherent. The baby was too young to speak. She was threatening to hurt herself and the baby, Travis continued, his voice cracking with emotion that sounded rehearsed to anyone paying close attention. I tried to stop her. I tried to calm her down, and she just collapsed. Belle appeared at his side, her hand resting on his arm with the familiarity of a woman who belonged there. I saw the whole thing, officer. It was terrifying. Harper was completely out of control. Martinez looked between them. Two attractive, well-dressed people with matching stories and sympathetic expressions. Then she looked at Harper. Bruised arm, split lip, the kind of injuries that did not match a simple faint. Before Martinez could ask another question, the front door burst open. Evan Lane stormed in, badge already in his hand. His eyes swept the room and landed on his sister being wheeled toward the ambulance. Harper! He pushed past the paramedics and grabbed her hand. Harper, can you hear me? Her eyes flickered open, just barely, enough to see her brother's face swimming above her. Evan! Her voice was barely a whisper. He. But before she could finish, a gentle hand pulled Evan back. Sir, we need to transport her now. Her blood pressure is dangerously low. Evan watched helplessly as they loaded his sister into the ambulance. His hands were shaking. His mind was racing. He turned toward Travis, and the look in his eyes would have made a lesser man step back. Travis did not step back. He met Evan's gaze with a practiced expression of hurt and confusion. Evan, thank God you're here. I didn't know what to do. She just snapped. I've been begging her to see a psychiatrist, but she keeps refusing. Evan's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He knew what he had seen on that video call. He knew his sister. He knew she was not the unstable one in this marriage. But he also knew how these situations worked. He had been a detective long enough to understand that emotion did not equal evidence. That suspicion did not equal proof. And Travis Coleman, standing there with his sympathetic frown and his beautiful mistress and his well-rehearsed story, knew it too. I'll be at the hospital, Evan said, his voice low and controlled. We'll talk later. Travis nodded slowly. Of course, whatever you need. I just want Harper to get the help she needs. As Evan walked toward his car, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Harper's phone. but it was not from Harper. The message read, "Thanks for the concern, but we've got this handled. Family only at the hospital tonight. Doctor's orders." Evan stared at the screen. His sister had never texted like that in her life. The formal tone, the dismissive attitude. Travis had her phone. Travis was controlling the narrative. And Evan was about to discover just how deep his brother-in-law's manipulation went. 6 months earlier, Harper Lane had no idea her life was about to become a prison without bars. She stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting the strap of her emerald green dress while her husband watched from the doorway. "You look beautiful," Travis said, his voice warm and admiring. "The most beautiful woman who'll be at that gala tonight." Harper smiled at his reflection. "You're biased." "Guilty." He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his hands on her growing belly. "But that doesn't make it less true." In that moment, to anyone watching, they were the picture of marital bliss. The handsome financial advisor and his talented interior designer wife. The beautiful townhouse. The healthy baby boy sleeping in the nursery down the hall. The new pregnancy that promised to complete their perfect family. But perfection, Harper was learning, was often just a mask for something rotten underneath. The charity gala that night was filled with Denver's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across marble floors. Champagne flowed freely. Laughter echoed off high ceilings. Harper stood beside Travis, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, smiling at strangers who complimented her dress and asked about her due date. She was playing a role. The happy wife, the grateful partner, the woman who had everything. Travis's hand pressed against her lower back. To anyone else, it looked supportive, protective. To Harper, it felt like a leash. "Stop looking at your phone," he whispered through his smile as cameras flashed nearby. "You're embarrassing me." "I was just checking on Liam," Harper whispered back. "The nanny said he was fussy earlier." "The nanny has it handled. Focus." His grip tightened slightly, just enough to remind her who was in charge. Harper slipped her phone into her clutch and painted her smile back on. That was when Belle Hart arrived. She glided through the crowd like she owned the room. Long blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders. A red dress that hugged every curve. Confidence radiating from every step. "Travis!" Belle's voice carried across the room as she approached. "And Harper, you two are just the cutest." She leaned in to air-kiss Harper's cheek while her hand lingered too long on Travis's arm. "Harper, you're so lucky to have a man like this. He talks about you constantly at the office." Harper watched them exchange a look. Something passed between them. Something electric and secret. Something cold settled in her stomach. "Belle's one of our top producers," Travis said, his voice too casual. "She's brilliant with clients." "I'm sure she is," Harper replied, keeping her tone neutral. The rest of the evening, Harper watched them. The way Belle found reasons to touch Travis. The way Travis's eyes followed Belle across the room. The way they laughed at private jokes that excluded everyone else. By the time they got home, Harper's suspicion had hardened into certainty. She waited until Travis was in the shower. Then she went through his jacket pockets. The receipt was folded twice and tucked into his wallet. A hotel spa. $1,400. A date when Harper had been visiting her mother with Liam. She had never been to that spa. When Travis emerged from the bathroom, steam rolling out behind him, Harper held up the receipt. "What is this?" His expression flickered, just for a second. Then it reset into concerned confusion. "Are you going through my things now?" "Travis, what is this?" "It's a client thank you. The Reynolds account. They upgraded our service package, so we treated them to a spa day." "A $1,400 spa day?" Travis's face shifted. The warmth drained away, replaced by something harder. "This is exactly what your mother warned me about. The paranoia, the accusations. I thought you were doing better, Harper." Harper felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "My mother?" "She called me last week. Said you've been anxious. Reading into things that aren't there. She's worried about you." Travis stepped closer, his voice softening into something that almost sounded like concern. "I'm worried about you too." Harper opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, to demand the truth. Instead, she heard herself apologize. "I'm sorry, you're right. I've been stressed with the pregnancy and Liam not sleeping through the night. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. Travis smiled gently and pulled her into a hug. It's okay. We'll get through this together. That's what marriage is. Harper let him hold her, but over his shoulder her eyes stayed open. Something was wrong, something was very, very wrong, and she was going to find out what it was. 3 weeks after the gala, Harper started keeping secrets of her own. It began small, a hidden notes app on her phone tucked inside a folder labeled recipe ideas that she knew Travis would never open. A password only she knew, a digital space that was entirely her own. The first entry was simple, a photograph of a bruise on her upper arm, purple and yellow, shaped like fingerprints. The date, the circumstance. Travis grabbed my arm when I asked about the credit card statement. He said I was being paranoid, left bruises. The second entry came 3 days later. Another photograph. This time her wrist, angry red marks circling it like a bracelet of pain. Tried to leave dinner early because Liam was crying. Travis grabbed my wrist and told me to sit down. Said I was embarrassing him in front of his colleagues. By the end of the first month, Harper had accumulated 12 photographs, 8 voice memos recorded secretly on her phone during arguments, screenshots of text messages where Travis called her crazy and unstable, and lucky I put up with you. She did not know exactly what she was building. She only knew that something inside her, some survival instinct buried beneath years of walking on eggshells, was telling her to document everything. If anyone ever asks what happened, you need proof, that voice whispered. No one will believe you without proof. The voice was right. The night Harper discovered the full extent of Travis's affair, she was 6 months pregnant and running on 4 hours of sleep. Liam had been fussy all evening, cutting a new tooth that made him miserable. Travis had retreated to his home office, claiming he had urgent work emails. Harper had spent 3 hours rocking their son, singing lullabies, and counting the minutes until she could collapse into bed. When Liam finally fell asleep, Harper tiptoed to the kitchen for a glass of water. She passed Travis's office and noticed the door slightly ajar. Light from his computer screen spilled into the hallway. She heard him laugh, low and intimate, the kind of laugh she had not heard directed at her in months. I know, Travis was saying into his phone. She's exhausting, but we just need to be patient a little longer. Harper froze. Once the baby comes, I'll have more leverage. Courts always favor stable homes, and with her history of mental health issues, he laughed again. Let's just say I've been laying the groundwork. Harper's blood turned to ice. I miss you too, Travis continued. This weekend, she's taking Liam to her mother's. I'll tell her I have a work conference. He paused, listening. I love you too, Belle. Soon, I promise. Harper backed away from the door on silent feet. Her heart was pounding so hard she was certain Travis could hear it from across the house. She made it to the bathroom before her legs gave out. She sank onto the cold tile floor, hands pressed against her pregnant belly, and forced herself to breathe. He was planning something. He was documenting her mental health issues. He was laying groundwork. He was going to take her children. The realization hit her like a physical blow. All the times he had called her crazy, all the times he had convinced her mother that she was unstable, all the times he had isolated her from friends, controlled their finances, made her feel like she was losing her mind. It was not just abuse. It was a strategy. Harper waited 3 days before making her move. She waited until Travis left for work, until the nanny arrived to watch Liam, until she had the house to herself for exactly 2 hours. Then she opened Travis's laptop. His password was easy to guess, their anniversary date. The narcissist never imagined she would be clever enough to access his things. What she found made her stomach turn. Emails to Belle spanning back 8 months. Explicit photographs. Plans for a future that did not include Harper. But worse than the affair were the other documents. A folder labeled Harper Mental Health contained forged therapy notes claiming she had been diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression, fabricated prescription records for medications she had never taken, a draft letter to her mother expressing concern about Harper's stability. Another folder labeled Custody Strategy contained research on Colorado family law, Highlighted passages about how mental health history affected custody decisions. Notes about which judges were most likely to favor fathers. He had been planning this for months, maybe years. Harper's hands shook as she forwarded everything to her hidden email address. Screenshots of every document, every email, every piece of evidence that proved her husband was not just cheating on her. He was building a case to destroy her. When she finished, she deleted all traces of her access and closed the laptop exactly as she had found it. Then she opened her evidence folder and made a new entry. Found proof. Travis is planning to claim I'm mentally unstable to get custody of the kids. He's been forging documents, working with Belle to build a case against me. I need to get out, but I need to be smart. He's anticipated everything. I need to anticipate him too. She stared at the words on her screen. Her hands were still trembling. Her heart was racing. But beneath the fear, something else was growing. Determination. He thought she was weak. He thought she was broken. He thought he had stripped away every piece of her identity until nothing was left but a shell he could control. He was wrong. The next 2 months were the longest of Harper's life. She played her role perfectly. The dutiful wife, the grateful partner, the woman who accepted every criticism and apologized for every imagined offense. But behind the mask, Harper was planning. She researched domestic violence resources in secret, using the computers at the public library where Travis could not track her browsing history. She memorized the address of the nearest women's shelter. She hid $300 in cash inside a tampon box that she knew Travis would never touch. She added to her evidence folder daily, new photographs of bruises, new recordings of verbal abuse, new screenshots of controlling text messages. And she waited. She waited for the right moment, the moment when she would have enough evidence to be believed, the moment when she could escape with her children and never look back. But Travis moved first. It happened on a Tuesday evening, 6 months after the charity gala. Harper had made a mistake, a small one, but catastrophic. She had driven to the women's shelter intake center, not to go in, just to look, to see where it was, to imagine what walking through those doors might feel like. She had sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes crying behind the steering wheel before finally driving home. She did not know that Travis had installed a GPS tracker on her car. He was waiting when she arrived home, standing in the living room with his arms crossed and his face carved from stone. "Where were you?" Harper's heart stopped. "I told you I was picking up groceries." "Groceries?" He pulled out his phone and showed her a map with a red dot. "Then why does your car say you spent 20 minutes parked outside the Safe Harbor Women's Shelter?" The blood drained from Harper's face. Travis stepped closer. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You think you can leave me? Take my son? You're nothing, Harper. You were nothing when I found you, and you'll be nothing without me." "Travis, I can explain. I was just driving and I pulled over because I was tired. I did not even know what that building was." "Liar." He grabbed her arm and yanked her toward him. Liam started crying in his bouncer across the room, startled by the sudden violence in his father's voice. Harper pulled away. "Let go of me." Travis shoved her. Hard. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the edge of the kitchen table, one arm still cradling her pregnant belly. "You want to leave?" Travis's voice rose. "Go ahead, but you're not taking my kids. You'll never see them again. I'll make sure everyone knows you're an unfit mother. Your own family already thinks you're crazy. Who's going to believe you?" Harper's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it automatically. Evan, her brother, calling to check in. Something in her expression must have changed because Travis lunged for the phone at the same moment Harper did. She got there first. Fumbling, desperate. She swiped to answer. "Evan!" "Harper, what's wrong? You sound—" Travis grabbed her wrist and twisted. The phone flew from her hand, hit the floor, cracked, but it was still connected. On the other end, Evan heard his sister scream. He heard a baby crying. He heard Travis's voice, ugly with rage, saying words that would haunt Evan for the rest of his life. "You think anyone's going to help you? You're mine, Harper. You'll always be mine." Then the call disconnected, and Evan Lane was already running. The front door exploded inward 20 minutes later. Evan came through first, his badge already in his hand and his weapon drawn. 2 uniformed officers followed close behind, called his backup the moment Evan realized what he was driving toward. What he found made his blood run cold. Harper was on the floor, unconscious, a bruise already forming on her temple. Her arm was wrapped protectively around Liam, even in her senseless state, her body curved like a shield around the screaming infant. Travis stood 3 feet away, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice calm and collected. Yes, I need an ambulance. My wife collapsed. She's been having psychiatric episodes, and I think she may have hurt herself. Please hurry. He turned toward Evan with an expression of relief that looked almost genuine. Thank God you're here. She was completely out of control. I tried to calm her down, but she just kept screaming and then she fell. I think she hit her head on the table. Evan stared at his brother-in-law, at the man he had trusted with his sister's life, at the monster hiding behind a mask of concern. Put the phone down, Travis. Evan, please, I know this looks bad, but Harper's been struggling. Ask anyone, ask her mother. She's been having episodes for months. I said put the phone down. Travis lowered the phone slowly, his eyes never leaving Evan's face. I'm the victim here. She attacked me. I was just defending myself. One of the uniformed officers, a woman named Martinez, was already kneeling beside Harper. She checked her pulse, examined her injuries, spoke quietly into her radio. She's breathing. Pulse is weak but steady. We need that ambulance now. The sound of sirens grew closer. Evan holstered his weapon, but did not take his eyes off Travis. Where's the other woman? The blonde who was here when I called earlier. Travis's expression flickered. I don't know what you're talking about. Belle Hart, your co-worker, your mistress. Where is she? There's no one else here. Harper's been paranoid about other women for months. It's part of her illness. Evan wanted to grab Travis by the collar and slam him against the wall. He wanted to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had inflicted on Harper. But he was a detective. He knew how this worked. He knew that emotion destroyed cases and that rage made mistakes. So he swallowed his fury and spoke with cold professionalism. Travis Coleman, you're going to need to come to the station to give a statement. Of course, anything to help. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics swarmed around Harper, loading her onto a stretcher while Evan watched helplessly. Her eyes flickered open briefly, just long enough to find her brother's face. Evan, her voice was barely a whisper. The phone, my evidence. Then she was gone, wheeled into the ambulance and rushed toward the hospital. Evan turned back to Travis, who stood watching with his arms crossed and a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The smile of a man who believed he had already won. Harper woke to the antiseptic smell of hospital air and the distant beeping of machines. Each sound sliced through the bong in her mind like a knife through butter. Her eyelids felt impossibly heavy, like someone had draped lead over them. For a moment, she did not know where she was or how she had gotten there. Then the pain hit, sharp and radiating from her shoulder, her ribs, her belly. A tremor rolled through her body as memories crashed back like a violent tide. Travis shouting, the baby crying, the room tilting. Darkness swallowing her whole. Her breath hitched, ragged and uneven. Instinctively, her hands flew to her stomach. Baby, please. Her voice cracked like broken glass. Please be okay. A warm, steady voice answered from somewhere nearby. Your baby's fine. Strong heartbeat. The doctor checked twice. Harper jerked her head toward the sound, wincing at the pain that shot through her neck. A woman stood beside her bed, older, maybe mid-50s, with kind eyes and scrubs covered in cartoon animals. I'm Dr. Patricia Santos. I've been monitoring you since you came in. She paused, studying Harper's face with an expression that seemed to see more than she was saying. You took quite a fall. I didn't fall. The words came out before Harper could stop them. He pushed me. Something shifted in Dr. Santos's expression. Recognition, understanding, perhaps even belief. The police are outside, the doctor said quietly. They want to talk to you about what happened. Police? Hope flickered in Harper's chest. My brother, is he here? Dos Santos hesitated. A detective was here earlier. Evan Lane, but he was asked to leave. Asked to leave? Why? Your husband requested that only immediate family be allowed access. He said your brother was upsetting you. Harper's blood ran cold. Travis is here? He's been in the waiting room all night. Very concerned. Santos' voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes said something different. He's already spoken to the hospital administrator about getting you transferred to the psychiatric unit for evaluation. The psychiatric unit? I'm not crazy. He's the one who hurt me. I believe you. The words hung in the air between them. 3 simple words that meant everything. Harper felt tears streaming down her face. You do? Dr. Santos pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. She lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. I've seen this before, more times than I can count. The charming husband, the hysterical wife, the narrative that always seems to favor the one with the calmer voice. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. This is the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Memorize it. There's also a shelter 2 miles from here that specializes in helping women in your situation. Harper took the card with trembling hands. But if he has me committed, a 72-hour psychiatric hold requires 2 things: a doctor's recommendation and a family member's consent. Dr. Santos met her eyes directly. I'm the doctor on call tonight, and I don't think you need to be committed. I think you need to be protected. Relief washed through Harper so powerfully that she nearly sobbed. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Your husband has already contacted your mother. She's on her way. And from what I understand, Dr. Santos hesitated. She agrees with him about your mental state. Harper's relief shattered. My mother? She signed the initial consent forms before you woke up. If she doesn't withdraw her consent, there's only so much I can do. The door opened before Harper could respond. A nurse stepped in, followed by 2 police officers. Mrs. Coleman, we need to ask you some questions about what happened tonight. Harper sat up straighter, ignoring the pain that radiated through her body. It's Mrs. Lane, she said, and I'll tell you everything. The police interview lasted 45 minutes. Harper told them about the GPS tracker on her car, about Travis finding out she had visited the shelter, about the confrontation that followed. She showed them the evidence folder on her phone. 47 photographs, 12 voice recordings, screenshots of threatening text messages spanning 3 years of marriage. She watched the officers' faces change as they scrolled through her documentation. Skepticism slowly transforming into something else. Belief. Mrs. Lane, this is substantial, Officer Martinez said slowly. Why didn't you report this sooner? Because nobody ever believed me. Harper's voice cracked. My own mother thinks I'm unstable. My friends stopped calling because Travis told them I was toxic. Everyone always believes him. He's charming and successful, and I'm just the crazy wife. Martinez exchanged a look with her partner. We're going to need to take your husband in for questioning. For one beautiful moment, Harper let herself hope. Then the door burst open. Diane Lane stood in the doorway, her face streaked with tears and her eyes wide with panic. Harper, oh honey, I came as fast as I could. She rushed to her daughter's bedside and grabbed her hands. Travis called me. He told me everything. Harper felt her heart sink. Mom, listen to me. Sweetheart, I know you're confused. The pregnancy hormones, the stress of the new baby, it's affecting you more than you realize. Diane turned to the officers with an apologetic smile. My daughter has a history of anxiety. She's been having episodes for months. Whatever she told you, I'm sure she believes it. But Travis would never hurt her. Mom, he has been hurting me. For years, I have proof, honey. Diane's grip tightened on Harper's hands. You need rest. You need help. Travis has arranged for a lovely facility where you can get better. Harper looked at her mother, at the woman who had raised her, who had supposedly loved her unconditionally, and she saw the truth. Travis had not just isolated her from her friends. He had turned her own mother into a weapon against her. The psychiatric hold was signed within the hour. Despite Dr. Santos's objections, despite the evidence on Harper's phone, despite everything she had tried to do to protect herself, none of it mattered, because when Travis Coleman walked into the hospital administrator's office with his charming smile and his concerned voice and his detailed documentation of Harper's psychiatric history, he had 3 things on his side: her mother's signature, fabricated medical records from a therapist Harper had never seen, and the 20-minute video of Harper screaming and throwing things that Travis had secretly recorded during one of her episodes. An episode that happened after he had spent 3 hours berating her for imagined failures. Out of context, she looked dangerous, unhinged. She looked crazy. As the orderlies wheeled Harper toward the psychiatric unit, she caught one last glimpse of Travis in the hallway. He was smiling, and Harper realized with a horror that penetrated her very bones that she might not escape this time. The psychiatric ward smelled like bleach and despair. Harper spent her first 12 hours in a drug-induced haze, the sedatives they had administered during transport turning the world into a watercolor blur of muted sounds and distorted faces. When she finally clawed her way back to consciousness, she found herself in a small room with white walls and a window that did not open. Her phone was gone. Her clothes had been replaced with thin hospital scrubs. A plastic bracelet on her wrist identified her as patient Coleman, H, and listed her admission as voluntary. It had not been voluntary. The first day was the worst. Every time Harper tried to explain what had really happened, her words were documented as paranoid ideation and persecution complex. The more desperately she insisted that her husband was the abuser, the more concerned the staff became about her fixation and inability to accept responsibility. They had read Travis's file. They had seen the video. They had talked to her mother. They had already decided who the victim was, and it was not Harper. Travis visited on the second day. He arrived with flowers and a gentle smile and the kind of soft-spoken concern that made the nurses swoon. "My poor Harper, I've been so worried about you." They were alone in the visiting room. No cameras, no witnesses, no one to see the mask slip. Harper sat rigid in her chair, her hands gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I want to see my son." "Liam is fine. He's with a wonderful nanny I hired, very experienced with infants." Travis leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Here's the situation, Harper. You have 72 hours in this facility. After that, I can extend your stay or I can take you home. What do you want? Sign the divorce papers. Give me full custody of both children, and I'll tell the doctors you're better. You can walk out of here tomorrow." Harper stared at him, at the man she had married, the man she had once loved, the monster who had hidden inside his skin all along. "And if I don't sign?" Travis smiled, cold and satisfied. "Then I'll tell the doctors you had another episode, that you threatened to hurt yourself and the baby, that you're a danger to yourself and others." He shrugged casually. "I can keep you here as long as I want, Harper. Your mother will sign whatever I need her to sign, and by the time you get out, if you get out, our children won't even remember your face." Harper felt something break inside her, not her spirit, something else. The last thread of hope that had been keeping her tethered to reason. She looked at Travis, and for the first time in their marriage, she let him see exactly what she was feeling. Hatred, pure and absolute. "I will never sign those papers." Travis's smile flickered. "I'll destroy you." "You've already destroyed me." Harper's voice was steady now, calm in a way that surprised them both. "But I would rather spend the rest of my life in this place than give you my children. So do your worst, Travis. I have nothing left to lose." For just a moment, something like fear crossed Travis's face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "You'll regret this." He stood and walked out without looking back. Harper sat alone in the visiting room, surrounded by white walls and watched by cameras that recorded everything, but understood nothing. And she started planning her escape. The night nurse's name was Patricia, not Dr. Santos from the regular hospital, but a different Patricia entirely. A woman in her early 50s with tired eyes and gentle hands, and a way of looking at patients that suggested she saw them as people rather than problems. Harper noticed her on the second night, the way Patricia watched her differently than the other staff, not with suspicion or clinical detachment, with something that looked almost like recognition. On the third night, Harper took a risk. She had been refusing her medication, not obviously, nothing that would trigger alarm. She simply learned to hold the pills under her tongue until the nurse turned away, then spit them into her pillow. The sedatives made her foggy and compliant. Without them, her mind was sharp. Sharp enough to see opportunities. Sharp enough to write. She used a crayon from the art therapy room, paper torn from the back of a Bible in the community lounge. words scratched out in handwriting that trembled with desperation and hope. I am not crazy. My husband put me here. He has been abusing me for years and I have evidence. Please, I have 2 children. One of them is not even born yet. I need help. She folded the paper into a tiny square and waited. When Patricia came for her midnight vitals check, Harper pressed the note into the nurse's hand. Patricia looked down, read the words. Her expression did not change. My sister was killed by her husband, Patricia said quietly, so quietly that the words barely registered. Everyone said she was dramatic too. Then she was gone, continuing her rounds as if nothing had happened. Harper lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. The next morning, Patricia found her during breakfast. She did not sit down, did not make eye contact, simply walked past Harper's table and dropped something beside her tray. A book, thick and old, with a faded cover. Reading material, Patricia said loudly enough for the other staff to hear. Thought you might like something to try to pass the time. When Harper opened the book later in her room, she found a cell phone hidden inside the hollowed-out pages. And a note. Burner phone, untraceable. Call someone who isn't in his pocket. I'll make sure you're released tomorrow. The rest is up to you. Harper stared at the phone in her hands. Then she dialed her brother's number. Evan answered on the first ring. Hello, who is this? Evan, her voice cracked. It's Harper. Harper, oh my God, where are you? Travis said you checked yourself in for treatment. He won't let me see you. He won't tell me where. He's lying. He had me committed. Mom signed the papers. Evan, please, I need you to see the truth. Silence on the other end. Then, where's your evidence folder? The one on your phone? Harper froze. How do you know about that? Because you're my sister, and you're smarter than anyone gives you credit for. Send me everything. Relief flooded through her so powerfully that tears streamed down her face. I'll send it now. Everything I have. It's going to your email. Harper, listen to me. The moment you get out of there, do not go home. Go directly to the Safe Harbor Women's Shelter. I'll meet you there. What about Liam? We'll get him back, I promise, but right now we need you safe and free. Everything else comes after. Harper nodded even though he could not see her. I love you, Evan. I love you too, little sister. Stay strong, one more day. She hung up and immediately began forwarding every file from her evidence folder to her brother's email. 47 photographs, 12 voice recordings, screenshots of text messages that painted a picture of systematic abuse, and the documents she had found on Travis's laptop, the custody strategy, the fabricated psychiatric history, the emails between him and Belle planning Harper's destruction. It took 20 minutes to send everything. When she finished, she deleted the outgoing messages and hid the phone back inside the book. Then she laid down on her thin mattress and waited for morning, for freedom, for the chance to finally fight back. The shelter looked like a regular house from the outside, a modest craftsman-style home by a quiet Denver street, flanked by tall, evergreen trees that provided privacy from curious neighbors. Wind chimes hung from the porch. A welcome mat declared safe space in cheerful yellow letters. Harper stood on the sidewalk, Evan beside her, and tried to make her feet move. It had been 78 hours since her release from the psychiatric ward. 3 days of hiding, planning, and trying to convince herself that this was not really happening. It's going to be okay, Evan said quietly. They know you're coming. They're expecting you. Harper nodded, took a breath, and walked through the door. The intake process took 2 hours. A social worker named Maria documented Harper's injuries with clinical precision, photographed bruises that had turned green and yellow with age, recorded her account of the abuse with gentle questions and careful notes. You did the right thing coming here, Maria said when they finished. A lot of women never make it this far. Harper felt tears threatening again. She had cried more in the past week than in the past decade. What happens now? First, we make sure you are safe. This facility is secure. The address is confidential. Travis has no way of knowing you are here. You don't know my husband. Maria's expression softened. I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've known a lot of husbands like yours. They're not as powerful as they think they are. Harper wanted to believe her, but the fear that had lived inside her for so long was not ready to die. Evan came back that evening with updates. He had filed an official report. The evidence Harper had gathered was being analyzed by forensic specialists. The DA's office was reviewing the case. This is going to take time, he admitted, but we have enough for a protective order. And with the documentation you collected, there's a real chance of criminal charges. Harper sat on the edge of the narrow bed in her small room, her hands folded in her lap. What about Liam? We're working on it. The custody arrangement is separate from the criminal case. You'll need a family law attorney. I don't have any money. Travis transferred everything. I know. Evan's jaw tightened. We'll figure it out. There are resources, pro bono attorneys who specialize in cases like this. Harper looked up at her brother, at the guilt carved into his face, the regret burning in his eyes. I'm sorry, Vaughn, Evan said quietly, for not believing you sooner, for letting him convince me that you were the problem. He's very good at convincing people. That's not an excuse. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. Harper reached out and took his hand. You're protecting me now. That's what matters. They sat together in the fading light, brother and sister, trying to believe that the worst was over. They were wrong. 3 days later, Diane Lane came to visit. Harper was in the community room, helping another resident fold laundry, when Maria approached with an uncertain expression. There's someone here to see you, your mother. Harper's hand stilled on the shirt she was folding. How did she know I was here? She didn't. She's been calling shelters all morning. She says, Maria hesitated. She says she wants to apologize. Harper stared at the wall for a long moment. Then she stood. I'll see her. Diane looked older than Harper remembered, smaller. The past week had carved new lines into her face and dimmed the brightness in her eyes. Sweetheart, her voice broke on the word. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. Travis told me things and I believed him, and I should have listened to you instead. Harper stood rigid in the shelter's small visiting room, her arms wrapped around herself like armor. You signed papers to have me committed. I know, I thought I was helping. He showed me documents from a psychiatrist, records of prescriptions, and I thought, Diane wiped her eyes with a crumpled tissue. I thought you were having a breakdown. I thought the best thing for you was professional help. Those documents were fake. Travis created them. I know that now. Evan showed me. Diane stepped forward, reaching for her daughter's hands. Please, Harper, can you ever forgive me? Harper looked at her mother, at the woman who had raised her, who had supposedly loved her unconditionally, but who had also chosen to believe a man over her own daughter. I don't know, Harper said finally. I want to, but right now I can't. Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I'll earn it back. I promise. Harper let her mother hug her. She did not hug back. And when Diane left an hour later, she did not notice that she had accidentally revealed something during their conversation. Something crucial. Something dangerous. I'm so glad you're somewhere safe, Diane had said. Travis was asking about you constantly. I told him you were fine, that you were at a shelter, and that he needed to leave you alone. I didn't tell him which one, of course. I'm not that foolish. But she had told him there was a shelter, and Travis knew how to find things he wanted to find. That night, Harper woke to the sound of a car idling outside her window. She pushed back the curtain just an inch, just enough to see. A black BMW sat across the street, engine running, headlights off. The street lights illuminated the driver's face in a harsh yellow light. Travis. He sat perfectly still, staring at the shelter, waiting. He did not approach. He did not get out. He simply sat there, his presence a threat that required no words. Harper stumbled backward, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Maria! Her voice came out as a strangled whisper. Maria! The staff responded immediately. Protocols engaged. Police called, windows checked, doors secured. But by the time the officers arrived, Travis was gone. There's no crime in driving down a public street, the responding officer said apologetically. Without threats or trespassing, there's nothing we can do. Harper stood in the shelter's kitchen, surrounded by concerned staff and frightened residents, and understood something with perfect clarity. He had found her. He was watching her, and no one was going to stop him. The next morning, Harper called Evan. He was here last night, outside the shelter. He knows where I am. How is that possible? The address is confidential. Mom, she told him I was at a shelter. He must have figured out which one. Harper's voice shook with fear and exhaustion. Evan, he's never going to stop. He's never going to let me go. Then we need to move faster. Evan's voice hardened with determination. I'm going to talk to the DA today. Push for an emergency arrest warrant. With your evidence and his stalking behavior, we might have enough. And if we don't, then we find another way. But Harper, listen to me. You cannot give up. You cannot let him win. Harper closed her eyes. In that moment, caught between hope and despair, she made a decision. She had spent 3 years being Travis Coleman's victim. It was time to become something else. Sometimes life does not destroy you all at once. Sometimes it chips away at you, piece by piece, until there is nothing left but dust and regret. In the span of 72 hours, Harper Lane lost everything. Catastrophe 1. The bank statement arrived by email on a Tuesday morning. Harper had managed to access her personal checking account through the shelter's computer. The account Travis did not know about. The one she had opened in secret years ago, hiding small amounts of cash whenever she could. She expected to find $300, her emergency fund, her escape money. Instead, she found a balance of $47.16 and a string of charges she had never authorized. She called the bank immediately. Mrs. Coleman, I'm looking at your account now. It shows authorized access by a secondary user approximately 6 months ago. I never added a secondary user. The signature on file matches your name. We can send you a copy if you'd like. Harper felt the floor tilt beneath her. What about my joint account? With my husband. That account was closed 4 months ago. All funds were transferred to a new account held by a Ms. Bellhart. $340,000, her inheritance from her grandmother, her savings from years of work, the money that was supposed to be her children's future. Gone. Every penny transferred to the woman who was sleeping with her husband. Harper thanked the bank representative in a voice that did not sound like her own, hung up the phone, sat in the shelter's computer room and stared at the wall until someone came to check on her. Catastrophe 2. 2 days later, Harper discovered that Travis had poisoned more than her finances. She had been trying to find a place to live. The shelter was temporary. Eventually, she would need somewhere permanent, somewhere safe. An old college friend, James, owned rental properties. Harper remembered him mentioning a vacancy in his building. Affordable, quiet, perfect for someone starting over. She called him for the first time in 2 years. Harper? Wow, it's been forever. How are you? I've been better, honestly. I'm going through some things. She took a breath. I was hoping to ask about that apartment you mentioned once, the vacant one in your building. Silence on the other end. James? Harper, Look, I want to help. I really do, but Travis called me last week. Harper's stomach dropped. He told me about the situation, about the psych hold and the custody battle. James's voice was apologetic but firm. I just can't get involved in domestic stuff. It's too complicated. I'm sorry. James, whatever he told you, I'm sure there are 2 sides to every story. I just don't want to be in the middle of it. Click. Harper sat holding the dead phone, understanding dawning with horrible clarity. Travis had anticipated this. He had called everyone she might reach out to. Her college friends, her former colleagues, the neighbors she had been friendly with before her world shrank to the size of his approval. Everyone had heard his version first. Everyone already believed she was crazy. The final blow came in court, Catastrophe 3. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. Harper's pro bono attorney, a young woman named Jessica, who worked for a domestic violence advocacy group, had prepared as thoroughly as possible. But Travis had prepared too. The courtroom was small and cold, decorated in that particular shade of beige that seemed designed to sap hope from anyone who entered. Harper sat at the petitioner's table, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles ached. Travis sat across the aisle, looking every inch the concerned father. His lawyer was expensive and polished, the kind of man who billed $400 an hour and never lost. The judge reviewed the motions in silence. Then Travis's lawyer called his first witness, Diane Lane. Harper watched her mother take the stand with a sick feeling in her stomach. She had not spoken to Diane since the shelter visit. She had hoped, that her mother was finally on her side. Mrs. Lane, the lawyer began, can you describe your daughter's mental state over the past few years? Diane twisted her hands in her bosom. She did not meet Harper's eyes. She's been struggling, anxious, paranoid at times. Has she ever exhibited violent behavior? She throws things sometimes when she's upset. Has she ever threatened to harm herself or others? I've heard her say things when she was very upset. I can't remember exactly what, but she scared me. Harper felt the world crumbling around her. Her mother was not here to help. Her mother was still on Travis's side. Travis's lawyer continued the demolition with surgical precision. He played the video of Harper screaming during one of her episodes. Out of context, it looked terrifying. She looked dangerous. He presented the fabricated psychiatric records, the testimony of colleagues who described Harper as unstable and emotional. By the time he finished, Harper barely recognized the woman he had described. A monster, a threat, someone who should never be allowed near children. Jessica did her best. She presented Harper's evidence folder, the photographs of bruises, the recordings of Travis's threats, the documentation of financial abuse, but the judge was already shaking his head. These recordings were obtained without consent, he said. I cannot consider them as evidence. Your Honor, in cases of domestic violence, I understand the argument, Counselor, but the law is clear. Evidence obtained illegally is inadmissible. Harper watched her case collapse around her. The judge's ruling was efficient and devastating. Based on the evidence presented, I'm granting temporary full custody to Mr. Coleman. Mrs. Coleman will receive supervised visitation, pending a complete psychological evaluation. No. Harper was on her feet before she knew she was moving. No, you don't understand. He's the abuser. I'm the victim. He hurt me. He's been hurting me for years. Mrs. Coleman, please sit down. I have evidence. I have proof. Why won't anyone listen to me? Remove her. Bailiffs moved toward her. Hands grabbed her arms. Harper fought, screamed, begged. That's my son. You can't take my son. He's a liar. She was dragged from the courtroom, her screams echoing off the walls. Outside, she collapsed onto a bench, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Through her tears, she saw Travis walk past. He paused just long enough to catch her eye and smile. That night, Harper stood on a pedestrian bridge over Interstate 25. The wind whipped her hair around her face. Below, cars rushed past in both directions, their headlights cutting through the darkness like desperate prayers. She had lost everything: her children, her money, her family, her friends. Everyone believed she was crazy. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was the only way it could end. She gripped the railing and leaned forward, staring down at the rush of metal and light. I don't know what you're planning. The voice came from behind her, male, calm, careful. Harper did not turn around. Go away. I could do that, probably should. Footsteps approached slowly, but I'm going to sit down instead, right here on this cold concrete, and I'm not going anywhere. She heard him lower himself to the ground, heard the creak of leather and the soft exhale of someone settling in for a long wait. Who are you? Miles. I live across the street from your old house. I've been watching what's been happening. Then you know there's no point. It's over. Maybe. His voice was steady, patient. Or maybe it's just beginning. Harper finally turned to look at him. A man in his 30s, rugged face, dark eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. What do you want? To make sure you don't jump. Why do you care? Miles was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was rough with old grief. I had a sister once, Emily. She stood on a bridge like this one. I was overseas. Didn't find out until 3 days later. Harper felt something crack in her chest. Did she jump? No, someone sat with her. Didn't say anything. Just sat. He paused. She died anyway. 2 years later. Her husband. The words hung in the cold air between them. I wasn't there for her, Miles continued. I've spent 5 years living with that guilt. 5 years of not getting involved when I see warning signs because I don't want to make things worse. He looked up at her, his eyes reflecting the distant lights. But tonight I saw you drive past, and I followed you, because I'm done standing on the sidelines while good people get destroyed by monsters. Harper stared at him. At this stranger who had materialized out of the darkness with words that cut through her despair like sunlight through storm clouds. It won't make a difference. No one believes me. I believe you. You don't even know me. I know enough. Miles's voice hardened. I know your husband is a manipulative piece of garbage who gets off on controlling women. I know he's been playing the victim while you suffer. And I know you've got more fight in you than you think. How can you possibly know that? Because you're still standing on this side of the railing. Harper looked at her hands, white-knuckled around the cold metal. She had not realized how hard she was gripping it. She had not realized she was still holding on. The coffee shop was nearly empty at 7 in the morning. Harper sat in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a cup she had not touched. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like a woman who had not slept in days, because she had not. Miles slid into the seat across from her. You look terrible. Thanks, that's helpful. Just stating facts. He flagged down a waitress and ordered 2 coffees and a stack of pancakes. You need to eat something. When's the last time you had actual food? Harper tried to remember. The days had blurred together since the custody hearing, since the bridge. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You're growing a human. Her hand moved automatically to her belly, 7 months pregnant now. The baby kicked against her palm, a tiny flutter of life that somehow still existed despite everything falling apart. When the food arrived, Miles pushed the plate toward her and waited until she took a bite. Okay, he said. Let's talk strategy. Strategy? Harper laughed bitterly. The court didn't believe me. My own mother testified against me. I have no money, no home, and my husband has my son. What possible strategy is there? The one where you stop being a victim and start being a threat. Harper blinked. What? Miles leaned forward, his voice dropping to a murmur. Travis thinks he's won. He's got custody, public sympathy, and a judge who bought his story. But here's the thing about people like him. They get arrogant. They start making mistakes. And when they do, we're going to be ready. We? I told you, I'm done standing on the sidelines. Miles pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket and slid it across the table. This is a list of every person Travis has talked to in the past 2 weeks. His lawyer, his colleagues, Belle Hart, and his mother. Harper looked at the list, looked up at Miles. How did you get this? I'm a combat veteran with a security clearance and too much time on my hands. Tracking phone calls isn't rocket science. Harper stared at the paper, at the names, at one name in particular. Linda Coleman. His mother? They talk every day, sometimes twice. But here's the interesting part. Miles tapped the paper. 2 days ago, she called the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Stayed on for 47 minutes. Harper's breath caught. What? His own mother is having doubts, which means there's a crack in his wall, and we're going to exploit it. Linda Coleman agreed to meet Harper at a park on the edge of Denver. It was a risk. Harper knew that. This woman had raised Travis, had presumably loved him unconditionally, had probably defended him through every terrible thing he had ever done. But she had also made that phone call, and that meant something. Linda was already waiting when Harper arrived, sitting on a bench overlooking a duck pond, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked smaller than Harper remembered, older. The weight of what she was carrying was visible in the slump of her shoulders and the shadows under her eyes. Harper sat down beside her. Neither woman spoke for a long moment. Finally, Linda broke the silence. I've known my son was capable of cruelty since he was 14 years old. That's when I found the neighbor's cat in our shed. What Travis had done to it. Harper felt her stomach turn. His father was the same way, charming in public, a monster behind closed doors. Linda's voice was flat, resigned. I told myself Travis would be different, that if I loved him enough, supported him enough, He would grow out of whatever darkness was inside him. She turned to look at Harper directly. I was wrong. Harper did not know what to say. I've watched you for years, Linda continued. At holidays, family dinners, I've seen the way you flinch when he raises his voice. The way you make yourself small when he's angry. The way you apologize for things that aren't your fault. Tears began rolling down the older woman's face. I've seen my own past in your eyes, and I did nothing. Because admitting what my son was would mean admitting what I had failed to stop. Harper felt her own tears threatening. Why now? Why are you talking to me now? Because I found something. Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. Last month, Travis asked me to store some boxes at my house. Said he was running out of space. I agreed because I'm his mother and that's what mothers do. She held up the drive. But then I started hearing things from his colleagues, from Belle when she thought I wasn't listening, and I started to wonder what was in those boxes. Harper took the drive. Her hands were shaking. What's on here? Everything. Audio recordings of Travis admitting what he's done to you. Financial documents showing how he transferred your money. Emails between him and Belle planning how to get custody of the children. Linda's voice cracked. And a recording from last Thanksgiving, after everyone left, when Travis was drunk and angry and said things he thought no one would ever hear. Harper stared at the drive. Such a small thing, no bigger than her thumb, but it might just change everything. Why are you giving this to me? Linda stood slowly. She looked exhausted, ancient with guilt. Because you deserve justice and because my son needs to be stopped before he destroys someone else. She paused. I raised a monster, Harper. The least I can do is help you put him in a cage. She walked away without looking back. Harper sat alone on the bench, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline. For the first time in months, she felt something besides fear and despair. She felt hope. The evidence on Linda's drive exceeded anything Harper could have imagined. Evan went through it that night, his expression growing darker with every file he opened. This is comprehensive, he said finally. Financial fraud, stalking, assault, witness intimidation. And this recording from Thanksgiving, he pressed play. Travis's voice filled the room, slurred with alcohol, but unmistakably him. She's never going to leave me. You know why? Because I've made sure no one will believe her. I've spent years building this, telling her friends she's crazy, convincing her mother she's unstable. By the time I'm done with her, she won't even believe herself. A female voice. Belle. And if she does leave, then I destroy her. Take the kids, take the money. Make sure everyone knows she's an unfit mother. Travis laughed. I've got documentation going back years. Fake therapy records, videos of her having episodes. By the time I'm done, she'll be lucky if she gets supervised visits. Harper listened with tears streaming down her face. Every horrible thing she had suspected. Every manipulation she had endured. Here was the proof. This changes everything, Evan said quietly. With this evidence, the DA will have to act. This isn't just domestic abuse anymore. This is conspiracy, fraud, potentially even kidnapping, given how he's manipulated custody. What happens now? Now we build an airtight case, and when we're ready, we take him down. Harper looked at her brother, at this man who had finally chosen to believe her. Thank you, she whispered, for being on my side. Evan reached across the table and took her hand. I should have been on your side from the beginning, but I'm here now, and we're going to make sure Travis Coleman never hurts you or anyone else again. Chapter 8, The Second Collapse. The arrest warrant was issued on a Thursday morning. Harper received the call from Evan at exactly 9:15. It's happening. The DA signed off last night. We're picking him up at his office within the hour. Harper felt her heart soar after everything, after all the pain and fear and despair. It was finally over. I'll be there, she said. I want to see it happen. Are you sure? It might be hard to watch. It won't be hard. It will be justice. She never got to see the arrest because Belle Hart moved first. At 10 o'clock that morning, every major news outlet in Denver received an anonymous email containing video files. By 11 o'clock, the videos were playing on every local channel. The footage showed Harper at her absolute worst, crying, screaming, throwing objects, threatening to hurt herself, making wild accusations that sounded like paranoid delusions. Out of context, she looked dangerous, unhinged, exactly like the unstable woman Travis had always claimed she was. The anonymous email came with a statement. Harper Lane has been harassing and defaming her husband, Travis Coleman, for months. The attached videos show her true nature. Mr. Coleman is the real victim in this situation. He has done nothing wrong and deserves justice, not persecution. The videos went viral before noon. By 1 o'clock, the hashtag Justice for Travis was trending locally. By 2 o'clock, the DA's office called Evan with devastating news. We need to postpone the arrest. What? Why? We have evidence. We have a signed warrant. And they have the court of public opinion. If we arrest him now, it looks like we're persecuting an innocent man based on his crazy wife's accusations. This is ridiculous. Those videos are cherry-picked moments designed to make her look bad. They don't show what was happening before or after. I understand that, but optics matter. Trials happen in public. And right now, the public thinks Harper Lane is a dangerous liar. Evan hung up the phone and looked at his sister with anguish in his eyes. Harper. She already knew. She had been watching the news coverage on the shelter's television, surrounded by other residents who did not know how to comfort her. Strangers on the internet were calling her crazy, dangerous, a monster. Comments flooded social media. Classic manipulation. Women like her ruin innocent men's lives. He should sue her for defamation. Those poor children, no wonder he fought for custody. Harper watched her worst moments play on repeat while reporters debated whether she was a victim or a villain. And somewhere across the city, Travis Coleman was giving his own interview. I just want my wife to get help, he said, tears glistening in his perfectly practiced eyes. I've tried so hard to support her, to get her treatment, but she keeps making these accusations. It's heartbreaking. Belle sat beside him, holding his hand, nodding sympathetically. We just want the truth to come out, Belle said. Harper needs help, not a platform. Harper turned off the television. She walked to her room. She closed the door, and for a long time she just sat in the darkness, trying to remember why she had ever thought she could win. Evan found her 2 hours later. She was still sitting in the dark, still staring at nothing. Harper, talk to me. What's the point? The point is that we're not giving up. Those videos are a setback, but they're not the end. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Again, still, always. Harper's voice was flat, dead. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I imagined all of it. Evan knelt in front of her and took her hands. You did not imagine anything. I have seen the evidence. I have heard the recordings. I know what Travis did to you, and I am not going to let him win. How? How can we possibly fight this? By doing what you've always done, by telling the truth, by refusing to be silenced. Evan's grip tightened. The people watching those videos don't know you. They don't know the context. They're judging based on 30-second clips designed to make you look bad. And how do we change that? We give them the full story. Not in a courtroom, not through lawyers. We go public. Harper looked at her brother. What do you mean? A press conference. Tomorrow. You stand in front of those cameras and you tell your truth. All of it. The abuse, the manipulation, the evidence, everything. They won't believe me. Some won't, but some will. And that's enough to shift the narrative. Evan leaned closer. Harper, you've spent 3 years being silenced. This is your chance to take your voice back. Harper stared at him. She thought about everything she had lost. Her children, her money, her reputation. She thought about everything she still had. Her evidence, her brother, her truth. And somewhere deep inside her, in a place that Travis had never managed to reach, a spark flickered back to life. Okay, she said quietly, tomorrow. The courthouse steps were packed by 9 in the morning. News vans lined the street, cameras pointed at the podium like weapons. Reporters jostled for position, their microphones clutched like shields. They had come expecting a spectacle. The crazy woman who had accused her loving husband of abuse. The viral villain who had made Denver's evening news. What they got was something different. Harper walked out the front door of the courthouse at exactly 9:15. She was not hiding, not running, not crying. She was standing. She wore no makeup. Her bruises were visible. 7 months pregnant, her belly prominent beneath a simple gray dress. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had been through hell and survived. Evan walked beside her. Miles stood at the edge of the crowd, watching, waiting. Harper approached the microphones. The crowd fell silent. "My name is Harper Lane," she began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to tell the truth." She paused, took a breath. "For 3 years, my husband hurt me in ways most of you will never see. Not because I'm weak, because he's skilled. He convinced my mother I was unstable. He convinced my friends I was toxic. He convinced my brother, a police detective, that I was imagining things." She met the cameras directly, unblinking. "But I wasn't imagining the bruises. I wasn't imagining the fear. I wasn't imagining waking up every day wondering if today was the day he finally went too far." The crowd was utterly silent. "You've seen videos of me at my worst. What you didn't see was what happened before those cameras turned on. The threats, the shoves, the isolation. The man who told me every day that no one would ever believe me." Her voice cracked, but did not break. He was right. For a long time, no one did. Harper reached into her pocket and pulled out a USB drive. "But I believed myself. I documented everything. Dates, photos, recordings. 3 years of evidence that tells a story no one wanted to hear." She held up the drive. "This is being released publicly today. Every photograph of every bruise he gave me, every recording of every threat he made, every document showing how he stole my money, forged my medical records, and manipulated my own family against me." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I'm not asking you to like me. I'm asking you to look at the evidence. Because the same thing happening to me is happening to thousands of women who are watching right now, wondering if anyone will ever believe them." Harper's eyes glistened, but her voice remained strong. "I believe you, and so does the law." She lowered the microphone and walked away. The evidence went online within the hour. Evan had coordinated with domestic violence advocacy groups to host the files on secure servers. Within minutes, thousands of people were downloading and reviewing. The photographs came first. 47 images spanning 3 years, bruises in various stages of healing, a split lip, finger marks on an arm, then the recordings. Travis's voice, unmistakable, threatening to destroy Harper if she ever tried to leave. Travis admitting to Belle that he had been laying groundwork to take custody. Travis laughing about how no one would ever believe his crazy wife. And finally, the Thanksgiving recording. The one where Travis, drunk and arrogant, explained his entire strategy. "She's never going to leave me. You know why? Because I've made sure no one will believe her." The internet reacted exactly as Evan had predicted. The people who had spent the morning calling Harper crazy fell silent. The hashtag shifted. By noon, Justice for Travis was replaced by I Believe Harper. By 2 o'clock, the phrase was trending nationally. By 4 o'clock, the DA called Evan. "We're moving tonight. The warrant is active. We're picking him up within the hour." The arrest happened at 6:37 in the evening. Travis was at his office, meeting with clients, performing the role of successful businessman he had crafted so carefully. When the officers walked in, his face went pale. "Travis Coleman, you're under arrest for aggravated assault, financial fraud, unlawful imprisonment, and witness intimidation. You have the right to remain silent." They cuffed him in front of his colleagues, in front of the cameras that had been waiting outside since the press conference. He tried to maintain his composure, tried to keep his mask in place, but as they led him through the lobby, past the reporters shouting questions, past the cameras recording every moment, something cracked. "This is a mistake," he said, his voice rising. "She's lying. She's always been lying. I'm the victim here." No one believed him anymore. Belle was arrested at Denver International Airport 3 hours later. She was trying to board a flight to Mexico with $200,000 in cash. The money Travis had transferred from their joint accounts. When officers confronted her at the gate, she did not resist. She simply looked into the nearest camera and said, "I want to make a deal." Harper watched the arrests on the television in the shelter's common room. She was surrounded by other residents, women who had lived through similar nightmares, women who had been told they were crazy, dramatic, overreacting, women who understood. When Travis's face appeared on screen, handcuffed and desperate, someone gasped. When Belle was led away in restraints, someone cheered. But Harper did not cheer. She simply sat with her hands on her belly, feeling her daughter kick, and let herself finally believe that it might actually be over. A woman beside her, black eyes still fresh from her own recent escape, leaned close. "You did that," she whispered. "You actually did that." Harper shook her head. "We did that. All of us." The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was covered extensively by local news, then picked up by national outlets once the full scope of Travis's crimes became clear. Legal analysts dissected every development. Social media debated every testimony. Through it all, Harper remained calm. She testified on the 7th day, took the stand with her hands folded in her lap and her voice steady. Travis watched her from across the courtroom, the same look that used to freeze her blood, the same glare that used to make her apologize for existing. She met his eyes directly and did not flinch. "He told me no one would ever believe me," Harper said to the jury. "He told me I was nothing without him. He told me I was crazy." She paused. "I'm not crazy. I'm his survivor." Linda Coleman testified against her own son. The courtroom gasped when she took the stand. Travis's face contorted with betrayal and rage, but Linda did not waver. "I raised him," she said quietly. "I loved him, but I also know what he became. And I couldn't let him destroy another woman the way his father destroyed me." She detailed everything. The evidence she had found in his boxes, the recording from Thanksgiving, the cruelty she had witnessed and ignored for too many years. When she finished, she looked directly at Harper. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have spoken up sooner." Belle testified as part of her plea deal. She admitted everything: the affair, the financial theft, the encouragement of violence. "I thought I loved him," she said, her voice hollow. "I thought we were partners. But when things got serious, he started treating me the way he treated her." She glanced at Harper. "That's when I knew I had made a terrible mistake." The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. The foreman stood, read the charges one by one: aggravated assault of a pregnant woman, guilty; child endangerment, guilty; financial fraud, guilty; unlawful imprisonment, guilty; witness intimidation, guilty. Travis stood motionless as each verdict landed like a hammer blow. When the judge pronounced the sentence, his voice was grave. "Travis Coleman, I hereby sentence you to 35 years in federal prison. You will not be eligible for parole for 25 years. Travis's composure finally shattered. "This is wrong," he shouted. "She manipulated everyone. She's the one who should be in prison." Officers moved to restrain him. "You'll regret this," he screamed as they dragged him away. "All of you, this isn't over." But it was over. Harper watched them take him away. The man who had controlled her life for 4 years. The monster who had convinced her she was worthless. He was nothing now. And she was free. Belle Hart received 88 years in state prison for conspiracy and financial fraud. She was denied parole at her first hearing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Harper stood on the steps, Liam in her arms. She had regained full custody 2 weeks earlier, the judge reversing his previous ruling in light of the overwhelming evidence against Travis. Her belly was round with a daughter who would be born in 6 weeks. "Harper, what's your message to other victims?" She looked into the camera, into the eyes of every woman who had ever been told she was crazy, who had ever been silenced, who had ever wondered if anyone would believe her. "I almost gave up, more than once. I stood on a bridge and thought about ending everything because I couldn't see any other way out." She held Liam closer. "But I'm standing here today because I kept one small piece of hope alive. I documented. I planned. I waited for the right moment to fight back." Her voice grew stronger. "If you're watching this and you're scared to speak up, I understand. The system isn't perfect. People won't always believe you at first. But the truth has a way of rising." She took a breath. "You are not crazy. You are not alone. and you are worth fighting for. Evan stood beside her, his badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. He had been reinstated and promoted to lead a new domestic violence task force within the Colorado State Patrol. Miles stood at the edge of the crowd. He caught Harper's eye and nodded once. She nodded back. No romance, no dramatic declaration. Just respect between two survivors who had recognized each other in the darkness. 8 months later, Harper stood in the living room of her new apartment. It was small but bright, filled with her own designs. Plants on every windowsill, children's artwork covering the refrigerator. Liam was running around the coffee table, almost 18 months old now and getting faster every day. And in the nursery, in a crib draped with a pale pink blanket, slept her daughter, Hope. Harper had chosen the name during her darkest night. When she was standing on that bridge, looking down at the rushing traffic, trying to find a reason to step back from the edge. Hope was the reason. The daughter she had not yet met, the future she had not yet imagined, the life that was waiting for her on the other side of survival. There was a knock at the door. Harper opened it to find her mother standing on the threshold. Diane looked older, smaller. The weight of what she had done was still visible in the shadows under her eyes. "Hi, sweetheart." "Mom." They stood in silence for a moment, so much unspoken between them. "Can I come in?" Harper stepped aside. Diane walked past her to the window overlooking the street. She stood there for a long moment, not speaking. "I'm in therapy now," she finally said. "Support group 2, for family members of abuse victims who didn't see the signs." "Good. The therapist says it takes years to rebuild trust after what I did." Diane turned to face her daughter. "I'm willing to put in those years, however many it takes." Harper looked at her mother, at the woman who had believed the wrong person, who had signed papers to have her own daughter committed, who had testified against her in court. And she also saw the woman who had raised her, who had loved her, however imperfectly, who was trying finally to make things right. "I'm not ready to forgive you," Harper said quietly. "Not yet." Diane nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I understand. But I'm willing to try, slowly." She held out her hand. Diane took it. And for the first time in years, mother and daughter stood together, beginning the long journey back to each other. The following spring, Harper opened her design firm. She called it Second Story Design. The name had two meanings: the fresh start that followed tragedy, and the safe room she specialized in creating for women's shelters across Colorado. Her first major project was the very shelter that had protected her during the darkest period of her life. She designed new security features, comfortable private rooms, and a play area for children. When she walked through the finished space with Maria, the social worker who had welcomed her so many months ago, both women had tears in their eyes. "You changed everything," Maria said. "You know that, right? Every woman who comes through these doors now has a better chance because of what you did." Harper shook her head. "I just survived. The people who built this place, who staff it, who fund it, they're the ones who change things. You survived, and then you came back to help others survive." Maria squeezed her hand. "That's the definition of changing things." The documentary aired on a Sunday night. A local filmmaker had been following Harper's story for months, documenting her journey from victim to survivor to advocate. Harper watched it in her apartment, surrounded by the small circle of people who had helped her through. Evan sat on the couch, Liam sleeping against his shoulder. Miles was in the armchair by the window, as quiet and watchful as always. Linda Coleman had sent flowers but declined to attend. Some wounds were still too fresh. And Diane sat on the floor with baby Hope, learning how to be a grandmother again. The documentary was not easy to watch. Seeing her own face on screen, reliving the worst moments of her life, hearing strangers debate whether she had deserved what happened to her. But it was also powerful, because it told the truth. And the truth, Harper had learned, was the most powerful weapon of all. When the credits rolled, Evan raised his glass. "To Harper, the strongest person I know." "To Harper," the others echoed. Harper felt tears threatening. She had cried so much in the past 2 years. Tears of pain and fear and despair. But these were different. These were tears of gratitude. "I'm not strong," she said quietly. "I'm just someone who refused to stay down." Miles spoke for the first time all evening. That's the definition of strong. Harper looked around the room, at the brother who had finally believed her, at the veteran who had sat with her on a bridge and refused to leave, at the mother who was slowly earning back her trust, at the two children who would grow up knowing what love was supposed to look like. "Thank you," she whispered. "All of you." Later that night, after everyone had gone and the children were sleeping, Harper stood at her window and looked out at the city. Denver spread beneath her, glittering with lights. Thousands of homes. Thousands of families. Thousands of stories she would never know. Somewhere in those lights, a woman was being hurt. Somewhere, a woman was being told she was crazy. Somewhere, a woman was standing on a bridge, wondering if anyone would ever believe her. Harper could not save them all. She knew that. But she could tell her story. She could build safe rooms. She could be living proof that survival was possible. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. She picked up a framed photograph from the windowsill. Her and the kids, just the three of them. A complete family. She smiled. Not a happily ever after smile. I survived and I'm still standing smile. The final text on screen would read, Travis Coleman is currently serving his sentence at Federal Correctional Institution, Florence, Colorado. He has been denied appeal twice. Belle Hart was denied parole in 2024. She is serving the remainder of her sentence. Diane Lane continues attending therapy and support groups. She and Harper are working toward reconciliation, slowly. Linda Coleman volunteers at domestic violence shelters. She speaks about recognizing signs of abuse in family members. Evan Lane leads the Colorado State Patrol's Domestic Violence Response Unit. The unit has helped secure 147 convictions in its first year. Harper Lane's design firm has created safe rooms for 23 women's shelters across Colorado. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. If you or someone you know needs help, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone.